options open to the Syrian government? I'm joined from London by James Denselow. He's a security analyst and an expert on Syria. James, how much of these protests taken the Assad regime by surprise, do you think? Because some observers say that because the regimes in Tunisia and Egypt were pro-American, that President Assad thought this wouldn't happen in Syria. What's your assessment of that?
Well, I certainly think that the tsunami of revolution that has spread through the Middle East sort of started late in Syria, and there was thoughts that the Syrians had security forces and things in play and a legitimacy within the regime that was strong enough to withstand the demands that have characterised events in Egypt and Yemen. But clearly that's not the case, and there is now a momentum gathering in Syria, a momentum that the Assad regime is desperately trying to dissipate by using a combination of carrot and sticks. The problem is, while the carrots we've seen in terms of the getting rid of a moribund and impotent parliament and replacing it, and offering citizenship to tens of thousands of Kurds and reaching out to the sort of more traditional Sunni population at the centre, the traditional Syrian response has been sticks. And only in Syria would an actual state of emergency lead to a discussion of getting rid of the state of emergency. And I think the Assad regime will be desperately worried by the fact that the protests seem to be getting bigger and more bloodier by the week.
As you say, we've seen the regime crack down hard on the protests with dozens of people killed. Is the window of compromise still open, do you think?
Well, I think a lot about the silent majority of the key here, the Syrians who have yet to sort of realise which side of the fence they're going to come down on. There's a lot of fear in the country. Essentially, the regime has operated through a large amount of fear in the past, and events in the 80s, and especially 1982 in Hama, will be on people's minds. Like the previous report you had on about Yemen, about protesters not going out because they were concerned about their own lives being put at risk. And clearly that's a big issue here. Now, when the Syrians say they're going to reform and they're going to open up things and this is the time, you have to question the intent and the timing. And this is a regime that's been in power for decades. And the Syrian people have been in an abusive relationship with the state now for almost 50 years. And the question is, do we trust them when they suddenly think, oh, actually, we're going to treat our people a lot better? We've got to really wonder whether they're actually just looking to dissipate the protests and the momentum of these protests, stall for time, kick the can down the road, and hopefully deal with things a long time later.
So let me just expand that point about political reform then, James. Is there a way out for Assad if he reduces his power and establishes perhaps a parliamentary system with a fully elected government? Is that a way out for him, do you think?
Well, potentially, but it's a domestic revolution, that is. I mean, the Syrians have never had, or haven't had, in terms of the Assad dynasty, any power in these institutions. The power has all been centralised in the president and in the shadow state of the security forces. So, yes, I think there is a potential window for that, but will they do it? I mean, I just can't see it happening until the protests get to a certain level by which the only regime's survival, it seems to be that level of reform. And bear in mind, there's not the same external pressures on Syria that were, say, in play in the more pro-Western states like Tunisia and Egypt. Although Hillary Clinton has come out quite surprisingly and called Bashar al-Assad a reformer, I don't feel there's any appetite for Western intervention in Syria. And of course, there's the traditional cards of resistance against Israel and problems with Iraq that the Syrian government can play to warn its people against further chaos in the country. So truly, we're at a crossroads now, and the Assad regime will be uncertain what is in its benefit either way it goes.
All right, James Denselow there in London. James, good to talk to you. Thank you.